Hi, I'm John Menninger. I'm a psychiatrist, a member of CPS, and I work at the Denver Women's Correctional Facility.
I'm Claire Zilber. I'm a psychiatrist, also a member of CPS, and I met Lisa Forbes at a community event about addressing microaggression and intolerance in the workplace.
And my name is Lisa Forbes. I am a public speaker. I am a trauma resolution specialist and the author of the book, I Can Take It From Here, a memoir of trauma, prison, and self-empowerment.
I recently purchased 6 of your books to donate to the prison
In your
library.
book, you state that a person's first encounter with violence is not the commission of a crime. You posit that witnessing violence or being the target of violence is a necessary precursor to acting with violence. As a young mother, you murdered the father of your child. How do you connect this to your earlier life experiences?
I had a lot of childhood in-home trauma, a lot of childhood bullying, a lot of childhood attacks, sexual abuse, physical attacks, emotional attacks. And so I had a lifetime of not feeling safe. And so I write in the book how James actually became a stand-in for all of the people who had ever done anything to me in the past. So the violence that I had experienced that was operating in that moment in my nervous system did not allow me to react to the present moment, which was not a clear danger. I was totally reacting from the past, and it just really dragged everything from the past into the present and took it out on everyone who was standing in front of me.
After you were released, you started to treat yourself with emotion-focused therapy, primarily doing your own self-therapy, only with a little bit of outside therapy from a therapist in Boulder. Mm-hmm. Do you think that you needed to do your own therapy yourself because of problems with trust, or did you need to do it because of a lack of access?
No, I needed to do it because of lack of access. If I had to go to someone, have money or have insurance or even have transportation at that time in order to get help, I never would have gotten it.
Lisa, I was wondering, you were been sentenced to 25 years in Illinois. While you were incarcerated, what kind of access did you have to mental health treatment? And was that something that you sought while you were there?
There was a psychiatrist and a psychologist there, and I spoke to them on occasions. You know, if someone had asked me to talk about my problems, they would have never gotten it out of me. I was too bottled up to talk. Talk therapy wouldn't have helped me, but being able to tap on just my feelings, that is what got me open enough to the point where I could tell my story, which, you know, then led to my being able to share with other people that trauma is something that can be resolved.
You imagine bringing EFT into the mental health programs inside carceral settings?
That is my reason for being. Because if I had that when I was incarcerated, I would have come out so different. You know, a lot of recidivism is not about a person not wanting to do better. There's a gap between what a person knows to do and what they can do. And that gap is usually filled with trauma. Right? I always say trauma only allows you to think the thoughts that trauma would think. Trauma allows you to do the things that trauma would allow you to do, right? If I was not traumatized, I would be coming to a different conclusion about this situation. But because I am traumatized, I can only see this. I can only see what trauma allows me to see.
Lisa, tell us about using trauma-informed care to prevent violence among youth offenders.
We know that the vast majority of especially juveniles and certainly women have experienced sexual abuse or physical abuse or some other traumatic experience is behind their acting out in a violent way. Prevention is really the key. It's great to fix the perpetrator's life after the fact, but you don't resurrect the victim. Right? So we want to prevent people from becoming victims by preventing these children from getting to the point where they're so broken that they see no way out except to commit a violent act such as a school shooting or something. We need to reimagine the carceral system because we know what works and we're just not doing it. We need to reimagine it because it's not only just in the juvenile offenders' best interest, it's in all of society's interest. This is a public health issue. It's a public safety issue. It's an economic issue. We lose what we lose when a person is incarcerated and never gets back on their feet cannot be calculated. We do not know what that person could have become, what they could have contributed to society had they gotten the help that they need. So we need to reimagine it as something that gives people their lives back rather than just puts a band-aid on them and sends them out and hopes for the best that maybe they can at least get a job. What if that person could go back to their original blueprint? You know, when I was a kid, I wanted to be a chemist. I loved math, I loved science. But by the time I got out in my 30s, that window I felt had closed for me. I was just happy to get a job. You know, but what if we're losing doctors? What if we're losing scientists? Well, what if we're losing chemists? What if we're losing ecologists? You know, we need to reimagine this system as something that restores people back to the original blueprint of what they were capable of before this trauma happened to them. And that's the message that I like to take to people because people are sitting incarcerated and they're feeling worthless. They're feeling damaged. They're feeling hopeless. They're feeling like I can't do anything now that I've had this experience. And I really want people to see me as proof that despite all the trauma that I've had, that I outlined in my book only because I want people to know the depth of what I've suffered. Despite all of it, if I can get to the point where I can take it from here, so can you.
Lisa, what would you like psychiatry as a profession to do to help with that initiative?
I would like psychiatry to lend its support because with a 70% recidivism rate, we've got to do something, right? I mean, if we had 70% of airplanes falling out of the sky, would we keep flying them, right? 70% of this model car explodes. Would we keep driving it, right? But if 70% of people their lives are imploding, and they're coming back into the system no better than they were, or maybe worse than they were when they left. We have to do something. This to me is an intersection of public health, public safety, and economics. You know, it costs tax-paying citizens to have this entire failure.
So clearly, we need to increase access to trauma-informed care, both for people who are in prison and also after their release.
Correct.
Which brings me to my next question. The final chapter of your book is a provocative essay about changes you propose to help people who are released from prison reintegrate into society more effectively. You begin with semantics, advocating for using the phrase restored citizens rather than labeling someone an ex-con. Mm-hmm. It's common knowledge that people with a record of conviction for a felony have a much harder time renting an apartment, getting a job, registering to vote. And so you propose a federal Office of Restored Citizens. Mm-hmm. So please tell us more about your ideas for legislative pathways and policy pathways to improve re-entry into citizenhood for people emerging from prison.
Well, it's based on something that we already have, actually. We just don't apply it to restored citizens. We have the Office of New Americans, and it's geared toward immigrants in recognition of their unique challenges in immigrating into the civil and the cultural and the financial and the social fabric of a new society. It recognizes that many of these immigrants pay taxes, and so that they are entitled to receiving some benefits and helping them get their feet, grounded into society. My position is restored citizens need the same thing. First of all, restored citizens pay taxes. We restored citizens need financial help. We have unique needs that are different from people who have not been isolated for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. In many ways, we already know what is needed. We have restored citizen services locked into something we call reentry. Rather than integration, we integrate immigrants, but we say restored citizens need to be re-entered. That ignores the fact that many of these people were never integrated in the first place. They always had emotional issues. They always had issues with being treated with traumatically. They never were part of the system. That most people incarcerated cannot read above a 6th grade level. So we recognize that immigrants have language issues. Restored citizens have language issues. We have literacy issues. So my position is that I would take everything that has been proposed and in many states passed, even at the federal level, for the Office of New Americans Act, and I would create an Office of Restored Citizens Act in recognition that these are two groups of people who in many ways have many of the same issues. Only one of them is fleeing from another country, and one of them is fleeing from the nightmare of their past experiences. But we are not talking about things that don't work. We know this works because it works for other people. So we need to apply what works to restore citizens.
So I'm hearing two major initiatives that organized psychiatry could possibly help you with. So one is to help with implementation of the Office of Restored Citizens Act, and the other is to invite your program in to correctional facilities, particularly women's prisons and juvenile facilities, because of the higher rate of traumatization in those populations. That if we can invite you in to do your program, that we can then make a difference in the lives of many people.
Absolutely. And again, I really do not feel that I'm even asking people to try out something that is untested. We have the research. We're running something that has already been demonstrated to work. So bet on a sure thing, because we know that this works. For what it costs to incarcerate a person for 1 year, we could set many, many people free for a lifetime. We really do want to move not just into after the fact, but to preventing crime in the first place. And we know that most, I think 70 to 80% of juveniles have in the juvenile justice system have experienced traumatic events. Usually an acting out of a violent offense for a juvenile is the result of what they have experienced. And so if we can intersect them before they feel they need to act it out, if we can intersect them in schools, we've been trying to address this issue in relation to school shootings, that these are acts, many of them could be prevented if we had methods like the emotional freedom technique working in conjunction with the school psychologist or the school psychiatrist. So prevention is really the key, not to just allow a person's life to explode and then put the pieces together, but how many of these children's lives could we save, and at much less expense to the taxpayer, by the way, if we could intersect them before their life exploded or imploded into some type of suicidal attempt. So it works for both, prevention as well as after the fact. We need to reimagine the carceral system because it's not only just in the juvenile offender's best interest, it's in all of society's interest.